obviously working with clients, how do you kind of say, look, we're going to put in best in practice ability to kind of help you navigate this landscape, but actually the landscape's still pretty tricky?
Totally. The best way is just we don't really sugarcoat it, to be honest with you. I think what's awesome about digital is how natively it's grown up, how quickly it's grown up, how interesting and compelling it could be, all the fun, all the amazing stuff you can do with it. But you have to have also like a working knowledge of regulatory environments on a market-by-market basis on what data you can access and what you can't. And the regulatory stuff can get into the difference between how an OTT provider, what they can do versus a cable company versus a historical telephone company versus a mobile company. And then you realize that you have to be pretty adept at putting this amalgamation of pieces together for a client and trying to do it in a way where you're not saying it's perfect, but you're trying to get them to take a leap with you. And the paradox I think we find ourselves in, I outlined the planning one, but I also know that the audiences are on digital, and we have to find a way to reach them. So we see, we have a planning problem for kind of the corpus of digital or breadth and depth of digital. We know the audiences are there. And then in terrestrial television, at least in the United States, we have a supply and demand problem. And when you put all those things together, it's almost like the Bermuda Triangle of media. You have to figure out how to fly through it, or else you're going to disappear.
This event, and I'm sure a lot of the guys watching would have heard quite a lot about artificial intelligence, and AI seems to be a real buzzword. And we've sort of seen vendors who kind of have implied that at some point you'll just have this AI that, frankly, you'll just voice activation say, "Can you work all this stuff out for me?" and come back with all the answers. What's your position on those guys, on that sort of debate?
My prediction right now is that AI is only capable of reading a still image, that AI does not have the capability to read a video, and that AI certainly isn't able to look at the context of the video or content. I think it's the dependency on it is that it's been fed what has been questionable and learned that. And then you have to pull the string back, as you do with a lot of things in digital, and say, well, who's doing the care and feeding of the AI? And how subjective is the person that's feeding it content that's saying it's questionable or not? And that becomes a pretty, interesting thing. Then does every brand need its own AI based on its own brand values? Do you have to put it to that level? Because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to universally define brand safety as defined AI as fed by people that might not have the same view of brand safety. And also, I don't think it's to a maturity point where it can just be automatically fed video and or content, and for that content to be scored as appropriate or not appropriate. So I don't think it's there right now, which then leads you to the Clockwork Orange scenario that also is currently happening. If you read the article in Wired, there's 6,000 people offshore that are doing nothing but watching video, and that's sort of what I call the illusion of AI. They're offshore doing it, and they're the ones that are actually feeding it and scoring it. But then you have to say, okay, are they really accurate? Can they read it in all foreign languages and get the context of it? Probably not. And so, I think we have to find. I'd say I think the shorter-term solution for a lot of these problems is we have to better understand all the data that is created around this content, and then say, is there a better way for us to figure out when it should be monetized and is appropriate for brands if the content really is up to community policing for good or bad.
I'm conscious that I really want to open this up to questions to see if anybody in the audience has got any questions for Scott. Anything you'd like to ask? Any volunteers? Please. Got a microphone, I think, is just on the way. Yes? Slow. Yep, just coming now. Just here at the front here.
Hi, Nick Manning from Ubiquity. I think what you're doing is really interesting, and the fusion of CRM, software, tech, data, eventually AI, and then you've got P&G, a consumer products group that's been built on television advertising and brand equity. Talk to us rather, I guess, really, a bit more about...
I'll just talk to you, Andy.
Yeah, we can talk later.
Well, you can talk to me if you like, but you can talk to the rest of the people as well. But sorry about that. But talk a bit more about that and what P&G are trying to achieve with that. Because you mentioned in particular some of the new platforms, you may not be so good at building brand equity compared to television, for example. So I'm interested to hear more about how you view that.
So I'll give you a story. I went to talk early in the pitch process. I went in to talk. You'll be able to guess the category. I went in to talk to one of the categories, and I gave them my whole data-driven spiel that everything is going to be data-driven in the future. And their response to me was, "Do you understand my target is anybody with teeth? And if not, then we also have a product for them." The next thing out of my mouth was, well, if you could rig it up with credit card transactional data and you could create a window where you knew somebody had shopped the day before and you wanted to suppress advertising to them the next day, would that be of value to you? And they said, yeah. And I think, they're in terms of the rigor that, and I don't want to speak too much about them, but the rigor and discipline that they have behind television historically has been really is very impressive, and they're very we're working on a lot more multi-channel reach approaches right now that look at that, and without saying the words like total video, because I don't believe total video is the right way to do it, because I don't think it's a like for like comparison, but we're working on a lot of multi-channel or reach activity for them now.
Any other questions? Well, no, we do have one just at the back there. I was about to jump in.
Hi.
Hi.
I know this is going to go a little off topic maybe of this session, but I was curious if you could talk a little bit about the hearts part of the Hearts and Science proposition, because I feel like I'm hearing a lot about the science, but not the other piece.
Yeah. We're doing, I'd say the heart side of it, so we're adding in, I come from a sciencey type background, but we're adding in a lot more of kind of ethnography and comms planning into the understand why people do what they do. I think we have to, on the hard side, start to understand how creative is going to show up in native applications, and how to understand how to break through in those environments. I think, if you go over sciencey, you'll engineer a programmatic solution into native content environments, and it's going to be inappropriate. It's going to be interstitially received, and it pisses people off. I've shot personally about 50 hours of ethnographic video over people's shoulders, watching them try to engage in advertising in-app when they're trying to get to content and try to get to the utility of something that is an app, and it just doesn't work. And I think we have to solve for the science, solve for like how we break through in these new environments, how we get people to desire brands in these new technology environments, and frankly, the realization that each one's a little bit different. What your relationship is with Quartz is different than your relationship with Seamless and other apps, and I think we have to figure out how do we help brands show up into those spaces appropriately. And then we've been doing a lot of content development with publishers. So we've done a lot of work with Upworthy. We're doing a lot of activity for P&G with some of those types of folks, and where we're getting in and actually helping to script out the content and develop the content. And now we've got a branded, I don't want to say branded content team, but a content team that's probably 50 or 60 people now across P&G and AT&T, and that's sort of the hearts of it.
Mm-hmm. We've probably got time for one more question if anybody has got one. If not, no. Well, what comes next then for Hearts and Science? And I know you've now expanded. You're in Europe. You're also in Asia, I believe.
Sure.
So what comes next? And presumably now the next focus is getting that next client.
Honestly, my next focus is doing some great work for the existing clients that were bold enough to vote for us, essentially, to vote for a new way of working and a team that hadn't really assembled before and had faith that we could build a 1,000-person agency in less than a year, which still weird to say. So I am most concerned about delivery. In terms of revenue, I'm like looking for organic revenue growth. I want to do great work. I want to work with the best people, and I believe if we achieve those things, then we'll expand and grow and continue hopefully to lure in new clients. But that's my goal, is just delivery.
How's it been just quickly, how's it been from a talent recruitment perspective? Because obviously it's a new proposition. Has that been a challenge, or people have been generally quite?
That's been interesting. So some of our, like Zach, who's sitting back there, who runs the P&G business, joined us from Gray, where he was the head of digital. We've recruited a lot of people in from ad tech, from creative agencies that are more on the marketing strategy side, that some of them feel like they've been left behind within their creative agencies, that they're not doing comms planning or planning anymore, and want to, the opportunity to think. And frankly, we have rated a lot of the CRM agencies. So we took some very senior people out of Wonderman and Merkle, and my former boss joined me from Rap, and we've been, recruiting and building that out as a practice very quickly.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's starting to flash, so I think we should probably wrap things up. But thank you very much. And ladies and gents, hand for Scott. Thank you. Thanks very much. Cheers.